Hello everybody, welcome to the second part of Let's Talk Criterion. Before I begin, a great call out to all of the very busy YouTubers in the film community. I've been watching some of their live streams and videos, very encouraging to see there's such enthusiasm for Criterion movies out there, and just classic movies really, generally speaking. It's great, it's really good to see. I've been collecting Criterions for about 10-15 years now, so my collection's built up quite steadily. I bought an awful lot last year during lockdown, spent an absolute fortune to try and augment my collection and make it more rounded, and still working because it's a work in progress. You can never buy enough Criterions, I think. Anyway, moving on from where I left, Nolan was the last film I looked at, which was The Following. And we're moving on to the next one in my collection, and it's a classic. I'll give you a quote: "I should have been a contender." And Marlon Brando said that in On the Waterfront. This is a fantastic movie, a man's struggle, and I think it was a breakout film for Marlon Brando. It introduced him properly to the world, really, as an actor to be reckoned with. Then we have Terrence Malick, very popular Terrence Malick, of course, in Criterion, a lot of titles. And Badlands is a great movie by Terrence Malick, great road movie with Sissy Spacek and Martin Sheen giving fantastic central performances. They basically carry the whole movie. Then we have a film, I'm going to stop on the cover here because it's just stunning. I had trouble finding this one because it's quite expensive. In America, the prices are not cheap, but I managed to get it at a price that suited me, and it's Repo Man, Alex Cox. This fantastic performance, of course, from Harry Dean Stanton. He's a great go-to as an actor, Harry Dean Stanton, because less is more, and Harry gives it. And of course, Emilio Estevez in this is great as well. Great classic 80s movie, one you've got to see, and you can see there as I'm just talking, the covers being looked at, and it's just absolutely stunning. I love the colours, green, and the artwork is amazing on this film. Criterion is so good at just summing up a movie's feel from a cover alone, and that's fantastic. Mike Leigh again, Life is Sweet. Mike Leigh go-tos, Jane Horrocks, Alison Steadman, Jim Broadbent. He uses the same actors. A lot of British directors tend to do this. There's nothing wrong with it, because if you like really good actors and working with them, you've got a good rapport, carry on using them, I say. Then I've got a little bit of a thing now for this next film, and particularly for the actor in it. I'm not a mad fan of silent movies, but where Harold Lloyd is concerned, I've given a big exception. I've now got 3 Harold Lloyd movies, and coming on to the other 2 shortly. This one's my favourite from him that I've bought so far in Criterion, Safety Last. This man was a comic genius. He was an acrobat. He was a sort of visual magician as well. And the clock face, hanging off the clock face sequence in this movie proves it. There are so many fantastic near escapes, I would call it, from Harold Lloyd. I know a lot of people like Buster Keaton, some prefer Buster Keaton. I only got one Buster Keaton film, which I'll talk about later, but I prefer Harold Lloyd. But it's just amazing what he does in this film, and the film just rockets through. You barely notice the time passing when you're watching it, and as you can see from the cover, great still there from him hanging off the clock face, which in itself was a fantastic visual effect considering it was done in the 20s. Then we have Shoah. Very serious, this film, because it's a permanent testament to the Holocaust survivors. They tell their stories, they talk about people they were with who died at Auschwitz-Treblinka. It's very harrowing to watch. It's a long film. It's a documentary, basically. And you really do have to sort of be in the right mood to watch it. But it's fascinating. Then we have John Frankenheimer's Seconds. Rock Hudson surprised me in this. Wow. Rock Hudson is sort of a romantic actor, really, known for his sort of romantic, slightly comic turns, but I think this is completely different for Rock Hudson. So brave of John Frankenheimer to trust him in this, and shows what range an actor can actually achieve. Frances Ha, Greta Gerwig, isn't she lovely in this? Frances from New York, just running through her life, having a good time. Noel Baumbach, of course, directed this, and I think it's just delightful. Then we have an investigation of I've got to read this out. Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion by Ilio Petri. I'm not going to talk at this because a young fella called Filmmaker did a great review on this in his Criterion Corner. I suggest you watch the Filmmaker's review for that. Then we have Nashville from Robert Altman. Not my favourite Robert Altman movie because I'm not a mad fan of country music, and of course Nashville's the home of country in America. But there's some good performances in this film, and I think you should give it a watch and make your own mind up. Then we have Michael Mann. Now, there should be more Michael Mann in the Criterion collection, but at the minute there's only one film by him, and of course it's Thief, starring James Caan. Great performance by James Caan. He's such a versatile actor, and Michael Mann brings him out in the style which Michael Mann has been now known for since. Then we have a comic film with a massive cornucopia, shall I say, of comedic actors from the 50s and 60s. You've got Sergeant Bilko in there. You've got Dick Shawn, who was in The Producers, in there. Ethel Merman, of all people, unbelievable, is in this film. And she screams and she yells and she's hilarious. And it's a mad, 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 mad world. Spencer Tracy does a fantastic comic turn in this. He was popular for comedies, Spencer Tracy, as well as serious movies, but this one I think shows him off just at his best, I think, towards the end of his film career. Then we have a Hitchcock movie. I'm going to show you this one because it's a fantastic looking cover. Foreign Correspondent, not a well-known Hitchcock film. Had to seek this one out, in fact. But it's a noir film from the 40s, and there's a fantastic sequence in it where the protagonist is hanging literally off a illuminated neon hotel sign. And Hitchcock does this so well, just puts the camera on and just films a facade and an actor hanging off it. And it's just absolutely brilliant to watch. Now, the next one's interesting. It's a Soderbergh film, not a well-known one. Not necessarily autobiographical, but it's a sort of coming-of-age story. It's called King of the Hill. And basically it follows the struggles of a resourceful and imaginative adolescent who, after his younger brother is sent to live with a relative and his tubercular mother to a sanitarium, he must survive on his own. So he's sort of looking after himself and sort of working out how to live his life and the problems that it occurs. It's a nice little charming movie. It's nothing really exciting, but it's different, I think, for Soderbergh, a different departure for him. Then we have a film I don't think many people have talked about in the Criterion collection because I certainly haven't seen anybody even buy it on some of these Barnes & Noble videos, and it's A Brief History of Time. It's sort of an interview type, documentary type film on Stephen Hawking, who I find fascinating at the best of times, and it's about the book he wrote, A Brief History of Time. And it does get a little bit irritating because, of course, he talks through his voice box thing. And it does get a little bit annoying after about a half an hour because it does grate on you a little bit. But it's still an interesting watch. Then we have a second Harold Lloyd film that I was attracted to, another great silent comedy film, The Freshman. I'm going to show you the box on this one because it's a really lovely presentation. Fantastic transfer of this, I have to say, which is unusual, really, for that type of movie, to have such a lot of supplemental material, including written material as well. And the next one is Breaking the Waves by Lars von Trier. You either like him or you hate him. I like him. This is great, this film. It's bleak, it's set in Scotland. Bess, played by Emily Watson, and of course Stellan Skarsgård, very difficult to say his second name, is fantastic, and he's a bit of a Lars von Trier go-to, so to speak. Then we have a musical film from the 60s. This is great. This is A Hard Day's Night from the Beatles. And of course, they did have a sort of foray into movie making, the Beatles. Not all of it was successful, but certainly this was a breakout film, and it certainly made a mark on the film world when it was released. Scanners, David Cronenberg, classic schlock horror with exploding head, of course. You've got to see Scanners. It's one of Cronenberg's very best films. The Big Chill, Lawrence Kasdan. I'm hoping eventually Grand Canyon by Kasdan will come to the Criterion collection. Nothing on the horizon just yet, but he does tell these sort of very good stories with humans interacting. Fantastic cast: Glenn Close, Tom Berenger, Kevin Kline. They were the go-tos of the 80s really for filmmakers. And there's a fantastic sequence in the kitchen where they all sing along to I Heard It Through the Grapevine. Absolutely superb film. Then we have Y Tu Mama Tambien. Going to stop on this one. This for me is Alfonso Cuarón's greatest work as far as I'm concerned. It's just a gentle film with these two boys. Their girlfriends go off to Italy, and they're stuck in Mexico, and they meet this woman who seduces them basically and shows them, well, to be honest, it sends them on an emotional ride they don't really recover from. Two great central performances from the boys in this, and it's just delightful. And as you can see from the cover, fantastic book, fantastic presentation for this film. Y Tu Mama Tambien. Moving on now, Bob Fosse, a fantastic director, directed Cabaret, Sweet Charity, but this is a film about Bob Fosse himself. It sort of touches on some of the film work he did. The actor playing Bob Fosse's Roy Scheider. Fantastic death sequence towards the end of this film where he hallucinates. Brilliantly directed by Bob Fosse, but it's about Bob Fosse himself. Then we have the Jacques Tati collection. Now, I'm showing you the box now because it's really too big to take photographs of the individual discs, but as you can see, they're presented like this in a box. And these are all the Jacques Tati movies. So going through, we've got Mon Oncle, Misha Hulot's Holiday, Jour de Fête, Playtime, which I mentioned in my last video, Traffic, Parade, and Tati Shorts, and a really informative book comes with that as well. So if you're a massive fan of Jacques Tati, then that is the set to buy. I'm very intrigued by Tati. I've watched 3 of the movies, Mon Oncle, Misha Hulot's Holiday, and Playtime, and found all 3 of them fascinating and really entertaining. The first Lynch I have in my Criterion collection has arrived. It's, of course, Eraserhead. When I saw Eraserhead, I thought, I don't know what I'm watching here. I don't understand this. To be fair, I don't fully understand David Lynch still, but I think he wants to be that enigma to make you think what was going on there and never to be able to work it out, really. Only David Lynch knows what David Lynch knows, if you know what I mean. Eraserhead's fascinating, great film, all in black and white, of course, and a great performance as well. Then we have the Dolce Vita, my only Fellini film. I plan to correct this because I know there's a lot of Fellini fans out there who've bought the Fellini box set. I have pre-ordered the Fellini box set, waiting for it to arrive because it's taken a little while with the postal system at the moment. It Happened One Night, which is Clark Gable and Colette Colbert. I wouldn't expect these two to be paired up in a comedic movie, but it does work. The chemistry is there, it does actually work, and it's very, very entertaining to watch. Then, of course, I think everyone's probably got this in their Criterion collection or planning to put it in there. I'll show you the cover of it. It's Tootsie by Sidney Pollack. He directed it. It stars Dustin Hoffman. What I can say about this is, wow, what a performance from Dustin Hoffman. I think I started off a little bit sort of unsettled by him dressing up as a woman, and by the end of the film I actually thought he was a woman. It was so convincing. Jessica Lange gave a fantastic performance in this, of course, which won her an Oscar as Best Supporting Actress. You got Charles Durning in there, you got Terry Garr, you've got Bill Murray. Oh my goodness, what a cast, and used to such great comic effect as well. This film I haven't watched yet, but I'm very intrigued by. I'm just going to show you this one because you may not have seen this in the Criterion collection. This is interesting. It's about a woman who sort of contracts a debilitating disease which the doctors can't diagnose. It stars Julianne Moore and is called Safe. It's by director Todd Haynes. I haven't watched it, so I can't comment on it, but when I do watch it, I'll talk about it maybe in a small review. I am intrigued to see it though, and I'll watch it I think in the next week or so. Then we have a film which is basically a different take on Nazis and Second World War, because these are adolescents, and it's called The Bridge. It's by a director called Bernhard Wicki, and it's basically quite a strong story about the journey that these young adolescents go on, really. And of course they were indoctrinated, I think is the right word, as young soldiers, really. And I think it's interesting to watch because it shows their conflicts as well as them just directly following the orders they're given. That's The Bridge. Then we have a breakout British film from a director, Stephen Frears. The reason why it's a breakout film is because of its performer. Its central performer was Daniel Day-Lewis. Now everybody remembers him in My Left Foot as Chrissy, but this is a film for me that sort of put him on the map. It's My Beautiful Laundrette. Hani Qureshi wrote the screenplay for this, and it's sort of the breakout gay film for Britain. And it brought Daniel Day-Lewis to the fore and made him a castable actor, really, after this movie. Then we have French Lieutenant's Woman with Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons. This came out recently on Criterion and I was quite keen to get it, but when I rewatched it I was disappointed because I remember the film as being better when I saw it in the cinema as it is now. It's maybe because time's gone by and I've distanced myself from it and it's just not as good as I thought it was. Not a glowing recommendation for that, I'm afraid. Dressed to Kill, De Palma, great performance from Michael Caine in this, in a role that you just don't expect to see him in, and he's fantastic in this film. And then we have Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom. Lovely box on this one. So the presentation on Wes Anderson is just so good. This is superb because you've got a map in there. And of course you've got Bruce Willis and Bill Murray in the same film. What more do you want? It's funny. It's very, very charming to watch. And it's just classic Wes Anderson, really. Then we have Mulholland Drive, David Lynch, a great film, great two central performances, of course, in this, both of them excellent, and Lynch coming through again with a quite meandering story, which is fascinating to watch, confusing, and you question yourself for hours after watching this film. Then we have another Harold Lloyd movie, great silent comedy again from the 20s called Speedy. And then we have Coen Brothers film called Inside Llewyn Davis. A lot of people say it's Llewellyn. It's actually pronounced Llewyn. And it's Oscar Isaacs with a guitar and a cat trying to find his way through the world, get work, move on. And it's just what the Coen Brothers do best, really. There are some more Coen. There's another Coen title coming up as well. This film is great. I'm going to show you the cover of this. One of my favourite movies by Mike Nichols. Such a good director, Mike Nichols. This one, again, he just cast the perfect people in it as far as I was concerned. Anne Bancroft is Mrs. Robinson, who seduces Benjamin Braddock, played by Dustin Hoffman. It's a classic film and you must see it because it's a great, great coming-of-age movie. And they did some really unusual stuff for the time in this movie. Then we have The Manchurian Candidate, great central performance in this from Frank Sinatra. Also we have Janet Leigh and Lawrence Harvey in this. Again, a good film, what Frankenheimer does best. There was a remake much, much later on, which was awful. That's all I can say about that remake. Then we have, I think, what is considered to be Edward Yang's best work, and it's Brighter Summer Day. It's a long movie, but he just tells such gentle tales, Edward Yang, and as you can see from the cover, it's beautifully presented. It'd be nice to have a sort of book with this, really, a bigger book. There is a book with it, but it's not really big enough. But it's interesting as a story, and I think it is definitely Edward Yang's best. Brighter Summer Day. Then we have another Robert Altman film. You probably think I'm a Robert Altman freak. I'm not really. I just like certain Robert Altman things. And this one is The Player. Tim Robbins' great central performance in this as a man in Hollywood trying to pitch various film scripts and trying to make a name for himself. And there are so many Hollywood stars in this movie. You literally run out of fingers to count them, and toes. There are so many. Then we have what, of course, a lot of people consider one of his best works, Stanley Kubrick and Dr. Strangelove. I'm not going to go through the whole title. Recently came out in 4K in the Columbia Classics Volume 1. But this film's great. Peter Sellers, just a powerhouse performance in this, doing what he does best. A fantastic satirical look at war from a great director. And of course, you can't forget that wonderful scene where Slim Pickens is riding the bomb down to earth. Wonderful. And then we have The New World by Terrence Malick. Certainly not my favourite Terrence Malick movie, but it's nice to have the two cuts of that film, the theatrical cut and the extended cut on there. That's good. And then we have The In-Laws, directed by Arthur Hiller. And it's basically got two really good comic actors, Peter Falk, who plays Columbo, of course, and Alan Arkin. Great sort of double act, really, in this movie. Leads to a lot of fun and comedy capers. Then we have Blood Simple by the Coen brothers. This is interesting. It's a sort of typical sort of comic road trip story with dark overtones, which the Coen brothers do so well. I'm going to go up above me for the next one, and I know Filmmaker was very intrigued to see more of this. This is Krzysztof Kieślowski's Dekalog. Now, of course, it's well known that this is based on is a TV show which was set in an apartment block, and it's loosely based on the Ten Commandments. So each of the 10 programs touches on one of the 10 Commandments. It's just a study of humanity, really, and some films are slightly lighter than others, some are darker than others. It's interesting how he uses the camera and conveys this sort of fly on the wall feel when he's looking at people's lives. It's a nicely presented thing. I'm just going to show you it now. You've got a large book in this, and it goes over various discs as well. There's a few supplements on there too, as you can see from looking at the back cover. It's a Polish film, got English subtitles. It runs for 10 hours, and there's also the fifth and sixth film theatrical versions of a short film about killing and a short film about love. So that's Dekalog by Krzysztof Kieślowski. Then we have Pan's Labyrinth by Del Toro. I haven't got all the Del Toros in the Criterion collection. This one's my favourite one, really. And again, the imagery and the use of music and colour in this is just fascinating. Then we have Linklater's Boyhood. I think it's a meandering movie, to be honest. I know it took 11 years to make. It feels like it takes 11 years to watch. I'm not being nasty, but I don't know the fella in the central role as he gets older is that good of an actor, really. He sort of started young, but I think towards the end I get the distinct feeling that he was getting a bit fed up with it. So I think it was more a passion project for the director than the actor who was the lead in it, if you know what I mean. Oh, should I say something controversial like that? Anyway, I hope he's not watching. Punch Drunk Love. Paul Thomas Anderson. First of all, we need more Paul Thomas Anderson in the Criterion collection if you're listening over there in New York. And what can I say about Punch Drunk Love? I think it's one of Adam Sandler's best. And surprisingly unusual role for him to play. But it's such a good film. Noah Baumbach's The Squid and the Whale. Great performance in this, of course, from Jeff Daniels. The Before trilogy. Well, I don't think your collection would be the same without the Before trilogy, really. Then we have a film by Andrew Haigh, his second and last film so far in the Criterion collection, 45 Years. Charlotte Rampling and Tom Courtenay looks at romance and love towards the end of life rather than when you're younger. And it makes an interesting study. This one I'm going to talk about, Hal Ashby's Being There. This film surprised me when I saw it first on TV. The one sequence I remember distinctly was basically when Chauncey Gardiner leaves the apartment that he's been living in for so many years after the owner passes away, walks out into the streets of New York to the fantastic score of Deodato also Sprocket's Zarathustra, and he just walks and the camera follows him walking through New York, discovering for the very first time a bustling and exciting city with a diverse range of people and things going on, and he's like an innocent child. Peter Sellers' role in this is just stupendous, and Shirley MacLaine is great as well. Being There by Hal Ashby. Rumblefish by Francis Ford Coppola. Breakout performance in this, of course, from the wonderful Matt Dillon. Launched him, really, this film. Fantastic. Ghost World, based on a comic book. This has Steve Buscemi in it. Interesting little story. I've watched it once. It's sort of not a film I don't think I want to rewatch in a hurry, really. Then we have a film I think everybody has in their collection, Stalker, Tarkovsky. Much talked about, so I'm not going to go into great depth on that. Another Mike Leigh film. Great performances from Gary Oldman and Tim Roth in this, of course. Tim Roth's breakout movie, Meantime for Me. Then we have a film, of course, which I know Elliot is very, very keen on. It's his favourite movie. I have to have a copy of it as well. And I do. Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick. Leon Vitali acted in this movie, and he went on after that to become Kubrick's closest assistant. He's actually supervised a lot of the new transfers to 4K, and that's really good because he literally now manages sort of most of the Kubrick estate after he died. A good friend and really devoted. Then we have Personal Shopper. Story is sort of spiritualism, medium. It's dark, but it's interesting. Christian Stewart stars in this. Then we have a great film from John Hughes, the only John Hughes film in the Criterion collection. Hopefully it won't be the last. I'm sure it won't. The Breakfast Club. Every actor in this is just superb. The young actors in it, Ali Sheedy, Emilio Estevez, just absolutely wonderful performances. Faultless, in fact, as far as I'm concerned. And the music score is equally faultless. Then we have, this is Ken Loach, great British film director. He directed Kess, which is in the Criterion collection. I don't have that one, unfortunately. Danny Blake. This sort of has parallels, I think, to COVID in a way, because it sort of shows a struggle of a man who has a disability, struggling back to get work and can't. The state opposes him, gets in his way. The benefit system stops him. And it's got a really sad ending, unfortunately. I'm not going to give it away, it's a spoiler, but basically it's lovely. It's lovely, sort of down-to-earth movie that you can watch over an hour and a half and get a feeling of what Ken Loach is all about. He is making a political and social statement with the film, as he always does. This one's great, of course. George A. Morero's best, I think. It's Night of the Living Dead. Introduces zombies to the world, didn't he, really? And they were there to stay, weren't they? They didn't go away very quickly. They kept coming back, as zombies tend to. Then we have The Age of Innocence by Martin Scorsese. Not one of his really well-known movies, a period movie with Michelle Pfeiffer and, of course, great performance from Daniel Day-Lewis. Still remember the scene with all the umbrellas, just absolutely stunning. And, of course, something he does really well is that sumptuous, wide frame view of the world, which he does so well. Then we have a film by Cristian Mungi. Cristian Mungi. Let me just check that again. Yes, Cristian Mungi. He's a Romanian director. I watched a guy in America on one of the Barnes & Noble videos buy this, and he also was talking about another film, which I'll come on to talk about in part 3 of my Criterion video. But this film is basically about a man who's trying to get his girl into university in Britain. And it's really interesting. I quite like him as a director. His style is really interesting, the way he tells a story. I think he's one to watch out for. And I haven't seen the second film that I bought by him, but I bought both of them on the recommendation of a guy on an American Barnes & Noble video who was absolutely nuts on this director. Then we have John Schlesinger's Midnight Cowboy. Again, fantastic performances from Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman. Equal, I think, in the film, I would say, and great direction from John Schlesinger. Then we have Bull Durham, Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon. Great baseball film. Americans do these sorts of films so well, I think. And then we have Sex, Lies and Videotape, a Soderbergh movie, of course, with a breakout performance from Andy McDowell and super work from James Spader. So that's come to the end of part 2 of the Criterion collection. Let's talk Criterion again in part 3 with the final section leading you up to the present day. And obviously with a collection like this, there's never an end, because you get re-releases of what was on DVD and then you buy them on Blu-ray and then they slot into the historical collection itself, which I love about Criterion. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Watch for further videos, there will be, and keep watching those movies and keep safe.